Week 14 of the fantasy football season. And here's a few kickers I look to start this week. The first guy, Tyler Bass of the Buffalo Bills. So Tyler Bass over the last 2-3 weeks here, he's definitely playing great football for this Buffalo Bill team. And he's got a good matchup versus the New York Jets. That's a bend but don't break type of defense. And going back to week 9 at the Jets, he did have 7 fantasy points. In that one was Tyler Bass. So this week I think he could do a little bit better. This is a big divisional game. I know it's a tough game in Buffalo where the weather's probably going to be freezing. But the good thing is it's a 1 o'clock game, and Tyler Bass pretty much this season has been automatic. So this week here with a pretty good matchup where this fits into his mold, where the Jets will hold him out of the end zone a few times here. I think Bass has a good game and is a start this week. The second guy is Devin McPherson of the Cincinnati Bengals. Devin McPherson, he's a kicker that started off the season very slow, but the last 3 weeks, ever since the bye week ended for this Cincinnati Bengal team, he's been on a tear. Week 11 at Pittsburgh, 17. Week 12 at Tennessee, 9. And last week in Week 13 versus the Chiefs with 10. So this week here, a great matchup versus the Cleveland Browns. I give up the 9th most fantasy points to kickers on the season. And pretty much Money Mac, he's automatic inside the 40s and the 30s, even though I know he had a hiccup going back a few weeks ago here at the Cleveland Browns on Monday Night Football, but he's playing good as McPherson of late, back on his A game like he was last season in his rookie year, and he's a kicker with a great matchup that you start this week. The next kicker is Nick Folk of the New England Patriots, and Nick Folk, it's been an up and down type of year here for Folk. One game will go for 20 fantasy points, and the next one will go for 3, but the last few weeks here, for the most part, it hasn't been great for Nick Folk. After he went off in Week 8 and 9, Week 8 at the Jets 21, Week 9 versus Indianapolis 16, Week 11 versus the Jets 3, Week 12 at Minnesota 13, and Week 13 versus Buffalo 4. But this week here, indoor game at Arizona, gives up the 14th most fantasy points to kickers on the season. And we know what Folk's capable of. As long as he's on and getting the opportunities, which he should with this New England offense, he could get you anywhere from 8 to 10 fantasy points. This week, the next kicker, Greg the Leg Zuerlein of the New York Jets. So Greg the Leg, he's been a surprising bounce-back candidate this season here for the New York Jets. After last season and the year before that with the Dallas Cowboys, he really didn't get anything going. But anyway, Greg the Leg, the last few weeks here, has been putting up quality numbers for the most part. Week 9 versus Buffalo, who he's versing, obviously, this Week 9 fantasy points. Week 11 in New England 4. Week 12 versus Chicago 9. And Week 13 in Minnesota 18 fantasy points. So right here, this is a ball game where the Buffalo Bills defense, they don't give up a lot of touchdowns. And this Jet offense don't score a lot of touchdowns. So that's a recipe for success here for Greg Zuerlein, I think, this week. So right now, I think 2 or 3 field goals attempts he'll get in this ball game at least is Greg Zuerlein. And he's been making them this season. So right now, he's a start this week and very undervalued as well, still available in over 75% of fantasy leagues. And the 5th and final kicker I have as a start this week, Graham Gano of the New York Giants. So Graham Gano, it's been a solid season for him once again with this New York Giant team here, with 8 games at double-digit fantasy points on the season. So right here, the last few games for Graham Gano, Week 8 at Seattle 8, Week 10 versus Houston 7, Week 11 versus Detroit. It was an off game for him in leagues where you miss field goals. He had -4. Week 12 at Dallas 11, and Week 13 versus Washington 8. So this week here versus Philadelphia, a defense that doesn't give up a lot of touchdowns, but it's also in a game where the Giants got to put points on the board here. Graham Gano, I think, can get a few opportunities. They want to stay pace here with this tough Eagle team is the Giants. And Gano in division games, for whatever reason this season, has been solid, 8 or more fantasy points in those games. So I would give him a start this week. So that's a few kicks I look to start here for Week 14 of the fantasy football season.